Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Analyze the Companions of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I am here joined by one of my favorite people in the YouTubeverse. Um, I will let him introduce himself to all of you. Take it away.
Welcome. And I hope we're going to have an awesome discussion here. Probably going to be one of my favorite characters of all time. We'll see. But anyways, Nuno is my real name. I rarely say it out there, but I'm going to open with that. Nuno Shea or Shea XEI. And I run a gaming channel, and a few other experiments on the side. Where I met Hark was on the gaming side, and we've done some collaborations with Dark Pictures and a massive run of Borderlands, all the Borderlands games, which were a lot of fun. And just, yeah, we keep on crossing paths along the way with tabletop and whatnot. So very excited to always talk to Hark. He's always a very intelligent person to bring a lot of good ideas to the table. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So there you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Shay. Shay also, by the way, was in our Pokemon tabletop campaign.
It's good old days. That was a
Good
long
old
time
days.
ago. My God, it was so
Super
fun.
fun. He
Yeah.
played Chase, who was I don't know how to describe him, but he
It's
was
a
like a
free roamer. It's
parkour,
a parkour kind
yes,
of guy. Yeah.
as well as a Fennekin. I
Yeah.
think you also played
I
the
mean,
Fennekin. Yes, Remy. Yes, but anyway, back to the Dragon Age universe.
great.
Uh, Shay, tell us who we are talking about today, and why. Why did you specifically choose this person?
We are going to be talking about Lucanis now. At first, like knowing very little about the character, and at this time, I had only watched the first trailer, which I think we both reacted to, and then we had a discussion about it. But what I knew about him is that he was an Antivan Crow. So
Yes.
that faction or that area of like Antiva in general has always fascinated me. With the
Mm-hmm.
past games, Zevran was one of my favorite characters, I think, of all time for the Dragon Age series, to be honest. And he really, like, he opened up the door of like what the possibilities were like on different parts of Thetis that we never got to
Yeah.
explore in the prior games. We always got the secondhand experience from it, and with the Veilguard, we're going to be able to play a crow, but also have another crow on the team, and get more of that perspective inside our experience. That, alongside with Tevinter Nights, Lucanus has a short story in that anthology, and I had just read the because I'm catching up on all the Tevinter Night stories, but I had to read up to that point just to know, because I know people were mentioning the
Yes.
Wigmaker, but I had no idea what the context was of what was in the Wigmaker. And so I finally read that one last night, and I was like, oh God, this is crazy. This made him even better. And so I think the idea of Lucanus, like early on, as like the name itself, I was like, is he a werewolf? Like, I just thought of Lucan. I was like, oh, we're gonna get like another angle
Mm.
where we're gonna explore werewolves from a non-elven
Yeah.
perspective,
The
or what
Dread
does that
Wolf and the
mean?
Werewolf.
Dread. I mean, it's just like, is that like, it might that be connected? I mean, because soulless elves
Yeah.
don't get the curse.
Yeah.
I know there are demon things involved, but I just I got curious about that aspect of him, and then the trailer with the wings, I was like, okay, so it's not a werewolf. I'm like, but I mean, now I'm intrigued because of the wings. Is this like a magical device? Is it some power that he's unlocked somehow? So I mean, where does this come from? And that mystery has been slightly unraveled with some future trailers, but we'll talk about that maybe
Yeah.
at the tail end of this, if conversations lead that way, because I don't know how much Hark knows, and so we're going to go in this a
Yeah.
little bit to sort of reveal things as Hark absorbs them, because I'd like to hear Hark's ideas along the way, and
Sure.
assumptions or speculations.
Yes. So we're doing what I'm calling the Lucanus analysis, and uh, to give a very high level overview of him, like I always do with all the other characters. Lucanus's full name is Lucanus de la Morte. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced in Antivan. Lucanus de la Morte. He is a human rogue, as Shay just said, from the Antivan Crows, voiced by Zach Mendez. If you check IMDb, Zach has been in a few movies and shows. Probably best known for the movies Married, Alive, Horizon Forbidden West, and Now What? And he is written by Mary Kirby. If Mary Kirby sounds very familiar, it's because she has been a lead writer or a senior, excuse me, she's been a senior writer since the very beginning with Dragon Age Origins. So she's a very seasoned writer, which I'm really excited about for this particular character. Um, One thing I want to give a disclaimer to is, like all of our previous character analyses, we're trying to limit the number of spoilers that we're going to be talking about, especially because I personally am trying to avoid them myself. The things that happen, for the most part, in game, during, and by in game I mean during the actual Veilguard game itself, because a lot of things have been recently been revealed. We're gonna, as much as possible, avoid those types of spoilers, but there might be a topic that is borderline spoilerish, which we'll save at the end. So we'll warn you when that's about to happen. So if you wanna cut yourself off from that, uh, you can peace out if you want to be fully protected. The other thing I will mention is that any events that happened prior to the Veilguard game, which includes Tevinter Knights, like Ashay mentioned, um, is going to be subject matter that we definitely will be talking about. So that's all fair game. So just to be aware of that. So with all of that, I will pass it back to Shay because there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of paths we can take. Where do you
Yeah.
want to go from here, Shay?
Well, let's start with the. I mean, if we do this in order of continuity of the stuff
Sure.
that we had access to, so that it at least pushes that other stuff to the end. I took a long time to get around to Defender Knights, but I'm rushing through because the game is. I want as much context as possible. Not so much of the characters that are into Winter Nights, but the potential world building or the ideas that they're exploring. That
Yeah.
might be seeded inside the Winter Nights. That will, of course, be then seeded into the game. So let's start with the Wigmaker, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And we'll see how far this conversation takes us. I think you read to Winter Nights a while ago now, relatively
I
speaking. How
I
much do you still remember?
have, and for the I meant to I meant to read it just before the session as well, but I didn't get a chance to. It's been a while. So for me and the viewers watching,
Sure.
can you just give a very high
Sure.
level summary of what happens in the Wigmaker? At least enough that pertains to whatever we're going to be discussing today.
Sure. So the story starts off with there's a job that the crows are sent to do. So someone that they have to take out, pretty standard fare, and So Katerina is the I forget the name of it, first Talon, and
Hmm.
so Ilario, I think, the cousin, and Lucanis are sent on this mission, and their target is I forget his first name, but anyways, the Wigmaker, this one
Yes.
character who makes hair with red lyrium. So that leads to some character qualities that I think are, if you don't read this story, we get a uh, Lucanis is the typical crow in the sense that he has a target, and then the death is just the death is the you kill someone, you move on. He had another layer to him, which involved like when he stumbled on the elven slaves that were part of this household, and there was like a bit of there's like an empathy that he has about him that Ilario doesn't have. For example, he's more of the typical crow, and then that leads to the scenario of, instead of just killing the target, he sort of sets up a scenario that releases abominations or turns people into abominations, and then it creates this crazy havoc around the household. And I think it kills something like 40 people in total, and then he eventually gets called a demon, and that's sort of how the story ends. That he's become like his name has lived on past this event, because like no one saw him, but he's like, how did one person take out all of these people, and so I think the conclusion was something like, it's a story they couldn't suppress, so they couldn't the Venatari couldn't suppress this kind of damage, and now he's been known as the demon. So that's the story summary. Hopefully that's enough seeds that will trigger some
Yeah,
memories,
it
and then we can
does.
go from there. So I guess the question is, because again, I'm going to be pulling on some of your memories here, but I'd like to maybe get your context from the idea of the subtext around his character, around that he's got that empathic layer, and what it might mean for him to have not just killed the target and moved on. Did you read it between any of those lines, like when you went through the story? And yeah, what are your thoughts on his character based on
Yeah,
that extra?
I'm vaguely remembering it because I do recall when we were having conversations with Zevran in Dragon Age Origins, he felt to be a quote unquote typical crow as well, where okay, a job is a job, I have to kill people, it's just the way it is. Of course, Zevran's situation was a situation where it was sort of forced upon him, from what I remember correctly, and it was just survival. Like he had to do what he needed to do to survive and to get by, and it's given his personality. If you never knew he was a crow, seeing him as a cold-hearted killer was something that I thought was very interesting for his character. And so for someone like Lucanis, who is not a carbon copy of Zevran in any way, shape, or form, I think the fact that he does show a little bit more empathy, I think, is going to be very interesting. Whenever you do find time to talk to him and get to know him, and you mentioned a little bit about the demon part, which I'm sure we're going to touch on quite a bit, especially given some of the trailers that were dropped. Yeah, I think I'm most excited just to get another perspective of the Antivan Crows, because as a player, I'm not like an Assassin's Creed kind of guy. I'm not really like into roguey characters or stealth mission, type of games. And so I never really like fully related to Zevran and the Tevan Crows, but I don't know, there's something about Lucanis that I feel is a lot more relatable, I guess, more tangible for me, and maybe it is because of that. Maybe it is because of that empathy nuance, but that's just my thought.
Yeah, good. Thanks for reminding me. It's something. Another thing I wanted to touch on was this the Assassin's Creed angle.
Yeah.
I never really aligned the Antivan Crows to Assassin's Creed until I read the Wigmaker, and I was like, the way every action was described, the scene played out like you were playing Assassin's Creed, but it was in Dragon Age. And I loved the Assassin's Creed games. I've only played up to Black Flag, but the best, and this is renowned, is Assassin's Creed 2 with Ezio Auditore. It's in the Renaissance, and everything about, because like if you play those games, they have the same, like that accent is what the Antivan Crow voice actors also project. Like
yes,
they are. This is, and like so that now really grounded Antiva to me like Renaissance Italy. And now that's my favorite era. I specialize it in fine art. Like this is my zone, right? And so now me seeing like Assassin's Creed inside Dragon Age elevated the Antivan Crows for me even more. Even though for you, it's not really that connection point doesn't exist for you because you don't like the stealth games and stuff like that. For the record, neither did I until I played Assassin's Creed 2. And you know what? As I was reading the Wigmaker, I was like, man, Hark would really like Assassin's Creed 2. That thought went through my head because I was like, if you at least only played that game, the Ezio Auditore character is probably one of the best characters written in any video game ever. And that trilogy, it's relatively short too. But if you skip all of the gamey kind of stuff and you just played the story of it, I think it would completely change your mind on what the potential of this IP franchise would have been, and I strangely enough, it would almost give you a visualization for what the Antivan Crows in Dragon Age might all be about. So, so yes, I think it's because it's the same sort of dynamic with the Crows too that exists with the Brotherhood in Assassin's Creed. There's a little bit of that. You can see there's inspiration going on there, But yeah, so the roll back to the demon comment and why. I added that in despite that sort of being a spoiler for the short story. Apologies ahead of time, but we did say we were going to talk about this, and it's kind of relevant. Is that that moment where he knows what he's doing when he spots the victims, and to him it's like they're already dead, right? Like it's not what's said, but you can feel it. Like he's like, I can't do anything about this. Like these people have really been left to suffer, right? Instead of just have it end. And that coming from the perspective of an assassin, it has a different like subtext to it, because he should be like heartless, and he's trained to be heartless and just do the kills. But when he sees people suffering who are just going to die anyways, he hits a wall. And so him breaking the protection magic that's keeping the demons at bay. And then he releases that chaos and has them all turn into abominations and leads to the final fight. Like it for me it was strange because like you could die like just by like this is a very dangerous move and it's going to kill a lot of auxiliary people in this. This isn't like it's no longer about the target he's after. This is going to cause a lot of residual damage, right? And again, the targets are maybe like to him, it's like it's no longer the single focused target that is his mission to do, but it's like anyone in the vicinity of this character of the target is like by proxy is also a target, you know. So he takes it a little bit further, but in achieving that goal, he's also willing to have those who are going to die anyways be able to fight for the final moments while being possessed by demons. And this is like, I don't think it's clear how important this part of the story is until you get to know more about what the character's going to be as soon as when we pick him up in Veilguard, and then we get to explore that part of his character. The nuance around that narrative is extraordinarily important. So I'm going to ask you then the second question is, did you read the flash fiction called The Wake? It was released online. Okay. So this was released online. This isn't on the EA site. And so I'm not sure if like, are you okay with me saying with this? This is literally like a 500 word short story. And I think why they created it is because they needed to bridge how that story ends, because he ends wounded and all this stuff, and the Venatori, forget her name, but she's like, we're going to get him at some point somehow, you know. And then the EA releases a story called The Wake, which is basically at the funeral of Lucanis. So like there's a bridge there that Lucanis, for all intents and purposes, will have died before the game starts. Now we all know that can't be possible because he's in the game, but that bridge is again one of those vital. It's very nuanced with the way that EA and BioWare pulled this off, because people are going to miss some of these details. You know, you're going to pick this up when you meet him, and then you're going to get that context inside the game, right? But for those who are like finding these seeds along the way, it asks a lot of questions of like, well, how can there be a Wake if we know he's going to be a character? And then you start to put just these two things exist before the game, right? And so now you get now when you reveal the character, he's got these wings. What the now you start to speculate. So me saying that to you now, I'm going to pull on some more from you, your perspective as someone who didn't read that story and now you're hearing about this. Like, how do you think that might impact both his character on the physical level, but also the metaphysical or emotional, like you know what I mean? The subtext.
So I have thoughts ever since I saw the trailer and saw those black wings that Lucanis has, and I feel like it's very on the nose when in To Venture Nights they were referring to him as demon.
Okay.
And so I'm guessing it's got to have something to do with demon possession of some sort. That's my guess, which feels very akin to a more recent game, Baldur's Gate 3, and how a character there was I'm not going to mention names because of spoilers, but how a character there seems to, I think, be in a similar situation, perhaps. And so, given what you just said about The Wake, my thoughts immediately thinking, okay, is he perceived dead, or did he actually die, but then was given a second like lease on life via this demon possession, which, by the way, is almost an exact parallel to what happened to Wynn, who also sort of got a second lease in life, but instead of a demon possessing her, it was a spirit possessing her. So, which now makes me wonder if there's going to be some really interesting, if that's going to end up being an encounter of some sort, where you have Lucanis, who's in my guess is possessed by a demon, versus another character who's possessed by a spirit. I don't know if that's going to be some sort of a interesting thing, because I'd like to believe, for example, Cole is somewhere around the world too, which is another total other side of the whole what exactly is a spirit. Like at the end of the day, Cole, by the way, who also is a rogue, you know, I hope they bring Cole back for this very reason, even if he has nothing to do with Lucanis, but I kind of doubt that would be the case if they do bring him back. Anyway, I just said a lot.
That's a great segue, man. That's the next topic. I mean, you accidentally stumbled on it. So.
Okay.
So we have now a couple explorations that BioWare has given us from a narrative perspective, with some character combos that have come since Dragon Age Origins. This does not feel like Lucanis isn't going to be like it's not going to blow your mind, and like how new a scenario it's going to be. Like, we've been seeded enough ideas that could get us to a Lucanis moment. So let's start with Dragon Age Origin. You just mentioned Win.
Win.
Ironically enough, I forgot. I forgot that Win was also possessed. But that, like, major character and major narrative arc there. The one I was thinking of is that in Awakening, you meet Justice in the and then Dragon Age 2, Justice and Anders become an amalgamation, if you will. And then that spirit's experience via Anders' physical world experience tarnishes this spirit, and Justice becomes vengeance. So now we have another conceptual idea that Dragon Age is playing with and pushing us to, like, really think about what that duality means between the Fate, the real world, and the Fate. And then we have Cole in Dragon Age Inquisition, which is very literally a spirit that manifests into something close to physical, and depending on your choices, right, it goes one way or the other, right? But because it does become binary when you have to make that one call, right? But until then, he's effectively another concept exploration around this idea of, like, what is a spirit, and then what is a real person inside this world. And this has influenced a lot of my ideas around what real beings are on Thetis, where I feel like Cole really does bridge what at the macro level, what I believe is actually going on with the races and life in general. Like, I believe all life on Thetis does come from a spirit form or an idea form, and the ideas become the races, and then that's why some of their history is missing and all that stuff. And so now we have Lucanis. In the fourth iteration, we have a scenario where in the Wake, so unspoiling yet, still in the Wake, he's dead. We don't get to see the body. But I mean, they're grieving over him as if he's dead. At least I don't remember them describing the body. And then we have the wings, which implies that possibly it's either magic or it's demons or a spirit, right? Like, it's one of those three things, right? And then spirits and demons are effectively the same thing at the end of the day. It's ideas manifested in the real world that do things or turn you into an abomination if you don't control that. So I think that's where we're now, where we get to explore Lucanis, which, again, like, he was already awesome for me. Felt like Cole was one of my favorite brain teasing kind of, like, man, he got me thinking, man, about the world lore in ways that I had just not done, you know? And so now we get I don't know if we're edging towards, like, the potential. One trailer clip I saw, and I haven't seen the full trailer yet, but I saw a clip where I saw more than wings. And so that was the closure of, like, okay, now they're setting up the character, and what, you know, instead of speculating that it could be demon possession, it's, this is the moment. Like, if you haven't seen all the trailers, you should probably just either tap out or, like, skip forward a little bit so you don't hear the details. But we see a clip where Lucanis is talking to another Lucanis, and it's a purpley Lucanis, and he makes a comment that Rook doesn't see the other voice talking to him. So he's hearing a voice, but we're seeing a manifestation of that voice, and it's very, very much it's a demon. Like, it's a demon in the sense of, like, it's him. I think the exploration that they might be going on here, right, is, like, what happens when a human or a living person on Thetis has an event happen in their life, aka the Wigmaker, and this is, I think, where it all is going to connect, right? Where the Wigmaker happens, and something almost reverses what happened with, like, Cole, or what happened with Justice and Anders, right? Because that was, like, a merger from the Fate up, right? What happens when it's, like, a human that pulls down and pulls a demon up, and then becomes, like, it's still him. He's dead, whether he is or not. I don't know yet. That's not spoiled, right? But he is not just living anymore, because he's got this almost split personality thing happening. And then it brings in the question of, like, is this a split personality? Did he manifest the demon with his own psyche? Like, you know, like his own version, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, does the demon actually exist from the Fate, or is he manifesting the demon in the real world? You know what I'm saying? So there's some really awesome duality conversations that are going to trigger in this gameplay. And I mean, that is my favorite topic in any game, is when you start going into the identity of a person, right? And all of the different facets and layers. that we can unravel along the way. So in those details now, let's see where you go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or your thoughts are.
Tangentially related, because I love thinking about how other characters or factions feel about specific characters, and I'm curious about how Emmerich and or people from the Mornwatch feels about this, because they have very specific rules about death. It seems like, and many of which seems to, be very controversial, obviously. And so here we have an individual who died. He's, for all intents and purposes, supposed to be dead, but something happens and he's not actually dead. Is this are they cool with this? Because to be fair, Emmerich's got a skeleton like companion. He's got a skeleton companion following him around. So like, are are those seen to be the same thing? I don't think they are seen to be the same thing. So like, yeah, I have zero clue which way they would go, and if Emmerich or Lucanis were ever interacting with each other, like how would that go? That's something I'm very curious about.
You're bringing up a good point, because I hadn't, like, the Mortalitasi are probably they should be one of my favorites, because I just love the necromancy and stuff like that. It's just in stories, I love that stuff. But they're below the crows for me. But it's like the idea of the Mortalitasi, though, and my Dragon Age Inquisition was all about a character who becomes a necromancer, but his idea of what he's doing as a necromancer is not the typical idea that we other role-playing games put behind a necromancer. And this is a very Dragon Age thing, right? Where necromancers on Thetis, or in from the Mortalitasi in any case, they're not doing it for evil reasons. There's like, it's a very honor based reason, and so
they have a respect for death.
And what is like a Walking Dead on Thetis? It's just like spirit possession at the end of the day. Or I don't think they're demons. I'm not sure if they were clear about that, but it's obviously not just animated bodies. Like, it's all wrapping back up into like lesser spirits that bring the body back. Now, what do the Mortalitasi do? Do they bring back the spirit? Like, it's almost like an imprint of the person that existed before reanimates the body, right? So you have like a bit of that semblance of the past coming through the dead, but it's from a place of honor. And so
I don't know if you've read all of the Tevinter Knights
stories. No, I've read the one with Emmerich.
Okay. Well, the one with Emmerich has a character that also gets a second lease in life too, and so that's why I am curious as to how the Mornwatch feels about whatever Lucanis' situation actually is. I don't know definitively.
I wonder if that's what we're going to get to explore in Dragon Age 4 now, like deviating off of Lucanis, but like as a maybe like a bridge here is like, are we going to explore that part of Thetis, of the lore of what's below, right? And how, because like the gods are coming back and all this stuff, but like what does that actually mean? Because it's like the more you learn about that, you're like, were they really gods, or were they just like a different form of being in a different part of history that created that status, and then that became what people thought. And of course, if you think it on Thetis, then it becomes more true, more real, like a Cole, the Cole effect. And so what is that? Do we get to maybe explore some of that stuff between the Mornwatch and potentially characters like Lucanis? And
now that I've learned a lot of things just within the last 15 minutes, it feels like Lucanis' situation really ties in very well with the overall main story arc, because what was Solus trying to do? He was basically trying to get rid of the veil and just, unleash the Fade spirits and demons upon the world.
Oh boy.
I would think, again, assuming that Lucanis has a demon possessing him, I would think that the demon would very much like that to happen.
Sure.
Like, hey, let's. So, there's definitely a conflict of interest here, which I think would be an interesting dynamic, and especially, this is my segue, especially if you're romancing the man, If you're romancing Lucanis. Now that I'm learning a lot about this, I'm starting to lean very heavily in Lucanis because it feels like, yeah, I want to sign up for that as a romance. It feels very it feels very Buffy and Angel or Buffy and Spike.
Does. Yes.
Very Buffy and Angel, Buffy Spike. And I'm a huge I personally, let the record show, I am more Team Angel than I am Team Spike. That's just me personally. I'm a Team Angel person.
As a Team Spike.
I get it. I get the appeal. 100%. I get the appeal.
Oh my
but
God.
either way, I don't know. I'm a sucker for those kind of things, I guess. I can fix him. I can fix him. It'll be okay. I can fix him.
Oh my God. That's it though. Every character for me, I think that's the weakness too. It's which one's gonna give the best like narrative like obstacles, of fixing. Oh my God. I'm also wondering like if what you said is that the Solus event might have caused this thing to happen, because maybe he was dead or dying, or we don't know.
Yeah,
and that moment
true.
happens, and it's like,
that's a good point.
Right now, it's like
that's
it's
true.
him dying, but not letting go.
That's true.
I might spoil something here too with the name of the demon, which I saw I saw in when they were doing dialogue.
Okay,
was the name. Are you okay with me dropping what the?
Sure.
So it's spite. So whereas there's like a bit of a vengeance flow going, the key word inside Wigmaker is vengeance a lot. And in my head, I was thinking about justice and Anders and vengeance.
Yeah.
Like, where does this right? And then I heard like the name Spite. I was like, oh, like is he angry about something? And so this is really his manifested anger. Has become
right.
He split his own personality, and I feel like they might be playing around with that, and that might not have been possible if the veil didn't tremble for a bit.
Yeah, if you're right, and the events of what Solus was trying to do does basically kick off him coming back from the dead, that means the Antivan Crows don't know he's alive, necessarily. And it's been very implied that at some point during the game, Rook's going to be like meeting the Antivan Crows at some point.
Yes.
So what's going to be the reaction when they see Lucanis walking around?
It's literally the first encounter, and I won't explain the details of it, but it's the first mission of from Katarina is going to be you finding him. Like, but again, I don't know the details of like, what does that mean? Finding his body? Like, I didn't.
What does that mean? Yeah. That's interesting
for the audience, right? You might all know. Be careful with the comments below, right? For other people who might not want to know, but like, I'm also sort of speculating here, where I saw images, and I'm making a lot of assumptions here, right? Because I don't know if the mission was go get his body back, and then something happens, right? And then but that's like it's in the first phase of the RP, so it isn't you'll encounter really fast.
Considering that my Rook is going to be from the Morn Watch faction, I think it'd be very poetic if there ended up being a romance between my Rook and Lucanis. I'm just throwing it out there.
Really do want to fix him.
Interesting. I really do want to fix him. Yeah.
Sweetheart, if you are dead.
If you are dead, we can make this work.
That's cold. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, cold. Yes, that's a good one. Good one, Shay. It's cold. Yes.
I think it's going to be an interesting relationship for.
Yeah.
I mean, the writer, her quote on the character was, I'm not gonna remember it exactly, but it's that he's a bisexual disaster, I think was her quote, and she says, "You're welcome." So it's like, I think he's gonna be game for I think a lot of people to like really explore, and I think he's honestly, like, if I had to speculate, he's probably gonna be the most romance character on the first playthrough for a lot of people. I think he's got the most immediate intrigue. At least based on what I've seen, but I've obviously had a bias coming into this. But
the accent alone, the accent alone,
so good.
Some trivia from the Dragon Age wiki. Apparently, when something, this is in the wiki, so I'm presuming this isn't too spoilerish. When something taps into the Fade, Lucanis feels an itch. In the back of his eyeballs.
Yes.
Which is a very specific thing, and sort of gives me that Will Byers Stranger Things kind of vibe a little bit.
Yeah, that was is specifically in the Wigmaker, that detail of the twitch behind the eye. So it's on the wiki. Yeah, it's coming from Witchmaker, and that's not really explained. Is that he has this this knack for being able to detect when someone is casting magic, he also detects this behind the wall. Like beginning of Wigmaker again, there's a Venatori assassin coming for them, and he can detect that they're a mage behind the wall. So he just
That's
stabs
cool.
his sword through the wall and kills the. I'm like, dude, you could have killed an innocent person, you know. And then I was like, oh, it's all kind of coming together. He sensed it, you know. So it's almost
That's
like
neat.
he already had something connecting him to the Fade in some way. You know what I'm saying? Like he has some anomaly that he's not a mage. So yeah.
Which makes him a very efficient mage killer, a very effective mage killer. And of course, I'm a mage. I'm gonna be a mage. That's gonna be great. It's gonna be fantastic.
Of course. Yes.
It's like the Cullen romance all over again. Mage Cullen romance all over again. I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Fun fact about Lucanis, which I had learned from a previous analysis video, is he also is a very good cook. Which is definitely the way to my heart.
Oh my God.
In real life, at least. And what I think what we found interesting is Belara also loves to cook too.
Okay.
So it seems like they're going to be the cooks in the party. And I would love, I think I mentioned this before, I would love for there to be some sort of cutscene where Lucanis and Belara are essentially doing, I don't know, doing their own rendition of Chopped or Iron Chef. I don't know. That would be kind of cool. And then Rook is the one who's the judge or has the final decision of who wins. I think that would be a really.
It wouldn't be a bad idea because like we had the poker scene in or whatever they were playing, the card game they were playing in Inquisition, and that it was meaningless but hilarious.
It was hilarious.
It was a good break.
I think that would be a missed opportunity if they don't do something like that. If you have two characters who are supposed to know how to cook decently well.
It's great.
So
I think he also loves coffee is a thing.
Yes.
And I mean, I read between the lines of that because of the other stuff I was speculating on. I'm like, does he not want to sleep? Because when he sleeps, he connects you to the Fade more, right?
Yeah.
So like, does he have maybe an aversion of like he doesn't want to connect it, he loses some control of himself or the thing that is becoming, or so I'm wondering if that there's a subtext there too.
That is interesting because my thought was for some people, if they have too much caffeine, they they get the shakes. And if you're supposed to be a rogue, who's supposed to have deft hands. Well, I mean,
the reverse of that.
Deft hands. The reverse of deft hands. If you're like trying to pick a lock, or if you're trying to stay quiet, it might not be good for you to be shake. I don't know. So that's I don't know.
Okay.
Interesting. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Does he eat? I guess he does eat.
I think he would. He cooks.
If he cooks, he must eat.
Like that's a thing. Like the whole death thing is, I think, the mystery that we're all gonna have to uncover as part of the character. Because I don't think he died. I just think he disappeared, or was taken, or was and that's part of the history we're gonna unravel.
This is a question I need verified by the writers. Did Wynn eat? Like in her condition, did she eat? Did Cole eat? I don't remember ever. When I read the novel that Cole was first appeared in, I don't recall if he needed to
remember some of the side conversations with Cole where he might have been exploring the idea of eating, and taste was maybe a strange thing for him. I can't remember if that actually happened or not, if I invented it in headcanon, but I feel like...
I think that sounds right, because I feel like there was a scene in Orlais when you're with Cole, and I think he mentioned something about
at
whether
the cafe
he could
or something,
eat.
I think.
Yes, at the cafe.
Okay. Oh, man, that's...
So Lucanis, I don't know, if I was dating Lucanis as a foodie like myself, I'd be a little disappointed if he couldn't really eat or like enjoy, like he could eat, but maybe he couldn't enjoy eating.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself he's not a vampire, but
not Angel.
He's not Angel. Yeah.
Yes.
His coffee is actually laced with blood, with human blood that he keeps drinking.
Like True Blood. I think that was
True Blood.
That stuff in.
There we go.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, super fascinating character.
Yeah, a lot of layers.
A lot of layers.
Man, I think we covered a lot of range here. I think if I think I would have touched on like Antiva in general, but I think we touched on that up front. But if there's like, is there anything you're intrigued about in terms of, if not Antiva, not to derail too much off of Lucanis's plot, but is there anything from that world building lore that intrigues you and that you hope that they explore?
Well, before I answer that question, the first thing that popped in my head is I hope we see Zevran again. I think it'd be a great opportunity for Zevran to return, assuming he survived the events of Dragon Age Origins.
I totally forgot that. That was
Yeah.
actually done.
So, or at minimum, Lucanis would give a reference to Zevran,
Yeah.
or name drop Zevran. Like maybe they knew each other or were rivals, or I don't know. Maybe Lucanis was part of the group that initially were supposed to hunt him
Oh
down.
man.
I don't know. Maybe he was supposed to hunt him down
Yeah.
when back in Origins. That would be a really cool.
Or in
Although
Dragon
that
Age 2,
happened,
right? Because this is when we meet him,
yeah.
it's a hunt down.
Although timeline wise, I feel like it's been like 20 or 30 years.
Oh.
So since that, so maybe not because Lucanus is supposed to be in his mid 30s. So maybe the timeline there isn't quite. Man, that means Zevran would be like in his 50s, 60s by now. I don't know.
He was an elf, so I mean, oh, but
Well,
that's right.
he's an elf, but he doesn't.
That's right.
They have the
don't-
same lifespan right now. Right. So I still feel like Zevran would at least get a name drop, if not seeing.
Oh, come on, it'd be cool. Like, imagine,
some
like,
case.
because he'd be one of the elders if he was still alive as
True.
a crow. Like, I don't think he ever stopped being a.
Yeah.
I know the crows were hunting him down, but I don't think that you don't stop being a crow just because they're after you. Like, he might have, like,
but
imagine him being an elder.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
I just would love to see visually what Antiva is like, because I feel like it would be a very colorful, vibrant place, which would be a huge contrast to the Gotham City look that Tevinter seems to have in the gameplay.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you've seen one of the more recent shows that has become pretty popular, sort of underrated right now, but my spouse and I are watching it. Acapulco is the name of the show. You don't have to watch it, but if you look up Acapulco, like the TV show on YouTube, you immediately see the vibrancy of the colors in that show. And I would love to see something like that in Antiva, because it just feels, based on what Zevran tells me, it just feels like a very ostentatious kind of culture.
Right.
So I think that for me would be what I would be most curious about, and hope that we get something that's remotely like what Zevran has painted in my head. But as far as the crows go, I just find that their whole what do you call it? Their hierarchy or leadership system works, because there's like the Talon, the
first Talon,
the first Talon, and like I don't remember if you become a first Talon by killing off the previous one. I don't remember how that works. Like I presume it's not necessarily the most democratic way.
No, you'd probably get in a crow society. You'd probably put a target on your head. The closest thing I've got is that it's kind of like the mafia. So if you think about like the head of the family, that kind of thing, kind of how it feels like it works.
I guess I'm just curious to see if a lot of them are like Zevran, or if Zevran really was the oddball. It was sort of like I don't know, if he was sort of like the unique snowflake amongst the... Because like I said, Lucanis and Zevran don't seem like the same type of people at all.
No, and I think they're part of a different... when Zevran started, I think he was part of... Because he got bought, and then
he got
turned into a crow. Like he got trained to be that, and a lower ranking of that, because he was more like an expendable. Whereas Lucanis really isn't. Like he's part of the family. Like he's part of... He's like the Della Morte is like those. That's like one of the head.
He's
like
related to the Like
he'd be the next in line for first Talon, is what was mentioned in Wigmaker.
Right, which would be an interesting decision-making thing, I guess, in the game. So I guess my question is this something that he was perfectly cool with? Did he ever have desires to not be a part of the crows?
He doesn't want to. So in Wigmaker, it opens up with him and Ilario, his cousin, talking about like, would you take it? Like Katrina's gonna step down, or she's getting too old, like something.
Right. Would you take Talon?
And like,
would you want
you're her favorite, is what Ilario tells him. But Lucanis is like, he doesn't want it. He'd rather just do the job, and he'd rather Ilario take the position. So there's a bit of they're like brothers, but Ilario, he respects the nature of the situation, which is like you're next in line technically, you're going to get it, but Ilario wants it, but he doesn't. He's not. There's no animosity there,
Alistair didn't want to be king, but Honora wanted it.
Yes.
But in my playthrough, I went with Alistair's wishes, and I didn't make him king.
Yeah, I made him king. I forced it.
You forced it?
I did.
So maybe you'll do the same thing with Lucanis.
I mean, it depends on the character, right? But it's like, the perspective of the character you're playing really changes the way that I think
Sure.
both of us are in the same way. Like our RP will take over our
Yeah.
personal decisions. It's like
Yeah.
personally, I have an opinion, but for the nature of the story and the character we're playing, it's like
Yeah.
I don't like it, but this is the way it's going to be.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm playing a crow going into this, so I'm
Oh,
going I'm going deep
okay.
into the into this
Okay.
like angle of things, and
That
I
would be
really want to
interesting.
explore what all of this
I'm
means.
curious about that.
And if you start like Rook as a crow, like what part of the crows? Like do we get maybe the nuance there?
Well,
Like yeah,
are you gonna play a rogue or are you gonna play a different
man, I
type of
think it
crow?
might have to be a rogue. I might have to
Okay.
go just
I was
double down assassin. Yeah.
I was always curious what a warrior crow would be like. A
Okay.
warrior crow or even a mage crow. I feel like
Mm,
mage crows can still be very stealthy, but like a
sure.
warrior crow, I don't know.
That's
That's an
that's
interesting
that's right,
concept.
because it's like yeah, because like if you apply stealth as like the it's almost like the primary lens, but like the only lens, because all we've known about the crows, like correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever encountered a crow that wasn't an assassin or a
That
rogue
wasn't a
in any of
rogue.
the
Yeah.
Dragon Age games. It really does sort of say you
Yeah.
have to be this path, but it's
Right.
an intriguing concept to think of it like early D&D would have the kits and the prestige classes where you could almost go
Yeah.
like you're a warrior, but your prestige classes like makes you a more of a roguey kind of warrior,
Roguey
or
kind
you
of
know what I'm saying?
warrior.
And I
Yeah.
wonder if like there's an angle there where you go, yeah, you have a
Yeah.
mage talents, but you have the approach when you approach a problem, it's very much with that rogue mindset, but you have
Yeah.
magic. That might be an
Yeah.
intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like a warrior, you'd be like, fuck, you just go for it. Where's the target? You just plow through it, plow through the
Yeah.
opposition and hit the target, and then plow out of the situation, right? It's like it's not
Yeah.
stealthy, but it's like some of the Assassin's
But
Creed games I play, like the more you play them, the more you stop playing stealthy because you realize the game gives you a lot of liberty. And then you're just like, how much can I push
maybe.
it? And so in some games I would just plow
Maybe.
through, do my thing and get out. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's a fun aspect to that. I'm gonna have to consider that
Yeah.
part.
I'm gonna do us both a favor,
Yeah.
Shay, because I know you and
Yeah,
I could just talk on and on and on and
indeed.
on. So I'll cap it at here. Um, but for those of you who haven't checked out Shay's channel, if you like people who are very analytical, if you like people who spends a lot of time in being really heavily invested in story and characters, comes up with amazing, very well thought out theories, very thorough theories. Please check Shay's channel
Thank you,
out. I
Mark.
would highly recommend it. Great guy, great person. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Shay.
Thank you, Hark. As always, I appreciate any time we spent together and yeah, creating content. So make
Cool.
people smile.
And on that note, thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, love yourselves and love each other.
Don't forget to explore, engage, and inspire, buddy. Peace.